was asked, how do I parent my suicidal child or teen? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And I have had experience parenting suicidal teens. So let's talk about parenting children with suicide. In this video, we're going to be talking about parenting the children and the principles of parenting, but then we're going to also be talking about suicide and how do we balance the principles of parenting with someone who's maybe struggling with suicidal ideation or even attempting suicide. What do we do about that? How do we approach it? There are many different reasons why people might experience suicidal ideation or a tendency to experiment with thoughts or actions related to suicide. And this is a really difficult topic. And I have to honestly say, unless you've been through it, I don't know if you fully can understand it. And even when a family has gone through it, whether the suicide attempt was successful or not, no one really gets it. They don't even understand fully what happened and what they could have done differently. I think it is important to recognize that when a person is having suicidal ideation or they are attempting suicide or threatening to attempt suicide, that this isn't necessarily something that can usually be blamed upon a person. So you don't want to take it on yourself like, oh, this is my fault. Because usually what's going on inside the person is something much deeper than just a regular behavior would be. So for years I did therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens. I also raised 4 children of my own. Some of those teens did have suicidal attempts or ideation, and one thing that I'll tell you is that they also had other mental health issues that they were dealing with. The majority of people who actually follow through with suicide and who really fascinate on it a lot are usually people who have other mental health concerns, such as depression, personality disorder, bipolar disorder, etc. The list goes on. But when things aren't working quite right in the mind, then that seems to be a key factor with people who really go far down that suicide path. It's something that is a really delicate thing to talk about, and I've debated actually for a long time whether I wanted to really openly talk about suicide on this channel or not, and whether I wanted to write articles on suicide or things like that. But sadly, it is becoming more and more prevalent. There are definitely social links to why it's happening. So there's people who are daring each other to kill themselves. There are people who are saying, well, you'd just be better off dead. And they're pushing it as a viable option on each other. That's not healthy. But even though that's happening, if a person has a really solid grounding in truth and has good relationships and good open communication with people, especially parents, chances are low that those types of statements made by other people that are trying to, convince them to do something so drastic wouldn't really resonate unless the person already had a lot going on the inside. So when a person is focusing on suicide, that's a sign of really deep pain, anguish, and obviously they're feeling like there's no other way to deal with their problem than this. And so one of the most important things that you can do with your child is help them see how to solve a problem. That there are many ways to solve a problem, that we don't have to think in such absolute terms. Now, I will say, when you are dealing with someone who is actively suicidal, you really do need to keep them in your sight. I know that seems like a burden, and even that isn't a for sure guarantee that nothing will happen. But when a person is in danger like that, That is really the only way that you can 100% stop it, because really it's a choice that a person makes if they're going to take their life or not. And it's a pretty drastic choice. You have to be in a pretty intense situation on the inside to even consider that as an option. It's like utter hopeless, right? That there's no other way out of whatever anguish or pain that is going on inside of the person. And so at that point, if they really are at that point, or even if they threaten at that point, you have to take them at their word. Don't just assume, oh, they're attention seeking. Many people do use suicide as an attention seeking thing, but you never know who that one is going to be that's using it as attention seeking or who's not, right? So there were many youth that came to my home in the foster care system who would threaten things related to suicide as an attention seeking thing. And I would say to them, well, I can't make you not do that. And so that is a choice that you have. But we really care about you a lot, and we're going to try to help you the very best we can. So in order to help you through this time where you think that's one of your options to solving your problem, then you're going to get the chance to stay right with me all the time. I'm going to sleep on the floor in your room, or maybe put a baby monitor in there. I'm going to have you come with me everywhere we go, except for when you go to the bathroom or take a shower. I mean, it's going to be like they're not going to school, they're staying with me. And so I took it very, very seriously. And that is something that you have to do. I mean, you can't just assume, they're just saying something. You can usually tell when somebody's saying something and when it really is coming from a place deep inside. When somebody's just mad at you and they're like, I might as well just, kill myself or something like that. Okay, that's when it's probably just attention seeking, probably just a power struggle. Even so, though, you always want to show your children that you take stuff like that very seriously, that that's not something that you just say to get attention. Another thing that I recognized was that when someone was at the point where they were really ready to do something like that, they usually weren't going to talk about it. They were past that point. Sometimes they were even very, very happy at that point. Keeping in mind that that's a normal thing that occurs too, is when someone is just flirting with the idea, that's when they might say stuff about it. But then it's later, when they're really ready to do it, they suddenly aren't talking about it anymore. And so you've got to keep that in mind too. Make sure that you understand the signs of suicide, that you are aware what some of those clues are. And honestly, one of the very first things that you want to address, and this isn't necessarily a sign of suicide, but it's a sign that something is wrong, is when suddenly your child doesn't want to talk to you and they start putting up walls. You've got to keep that communication with the child open. That's going to keep them safe from suicide, because they're always going to feel like somebody cares enough to listen. They need to have that listening ear. And when they are hinting at things that are wrong with them, or things that they feel like people don't understand, those things need to be talked about. You need to spend your time making sure that they know you're there for them, and that these things don't have to be so hard. Every location, every state, every country is different for what to do if you're really in imminent crisis. If someone right now is saying that they are suicidal and you feel like it's an emergency, then you really do need to reach out to somebody so that you can get help. And depending on where you live, there might be different national hotlines, or you could reach out usually to a hospital or that type of thing. I know in the United States, if you called 911, then the person would actually be able to get someone to respond to you, whether it was a police officer or whether they would get you to the hospital or whether they would send somebody out to your house, depending on where you live. And so just make sure that you do reach out to somebody else. Don't try to shoulder that whole thing yourself. If it's really happening, then you've got to do something. I think it's also important to make sure that you tell your children, you know what? It's normal to feel down sometimes. It's normal to feel hopeless sometimes. It's normal to have times where you feel like life is heavy and hard, because we all experience moments of depression from time to time. We have times of worry. Usually when a person is at a place of suicide, they usually are really disappointed in themselves. They're detaching from themselves a little bit. They're starting to look at themselves in almost a third person view, where it's like, well, if I can just get rid of that person that I see, then all will be better. They start to lose the human touch with themselves a little bit. They start objectifying themselves a little bit. Watch for some of those things, and make sure that, if your child is going in that direction, make sure you let them know, what, we all are disappointed in ourselves sometimes. Nobody's perfect. Humans make mistakes. That's life. We don't need to take them personally. We don't need to worry about it. Help your child see that what is happening to them is not something that has never been conquered before, okay? Almost every disappointment that we could experience in this life is a disappointment that somebody at some other time in the history of the world has also experienced, and they have made it through okay. And we have to help our children see that they can be strong, they can get through this, and that people get through things all the time. That's important. So be hopeful, be optimistic, be close and connected. And if they won't talk to you and they act like they don't care, don't give up. Stay near them, stay inviting them, even if they don't want to tell you everything that's going on. Usually for something like suicidal ideation and that kind of thing, it's probably going to be a good idea for them to go see a therapist, and maybe find somebody that you can trust that they can talk to, especially if they won't talk to you. Keep trying, but they do need to talk to somebody. It passes. That's one thing I can tell you. There are certain situations, maybe if somebody has personality disorder, it could keep coming up again and again, but usually it passes. Usually it's acute depression and situations that have compounded, that have made the person feel like it's too big for them to handle. I will say that giving a child whatever they want is not the solution. Babying a child is not the solution. A lot of people think that to protect suicide, that you just need to do whatever the child says and you put the child in the leadership spot. But actually, that's not really what they're screaming for when they're saying that they feel like their life isn't worth it anymore. They actually are wanting someone to stop them. They actually want someone to give them a boundary, a limit. They want someone to show them that they care that much. They want someone to lead them. They want someone to help them. And so the last thing that you do is just say, oh, well, they're saying they want this. They want this phone, or they want this change, or they want this thing with themselves. And so that's going to stop them from killing themselves. No, not necessarily. There are some people that use the suicide thing to cry wolf to try to get things they want. All the more reason that shouldn't be the go-to for our society. We should say, oh, okay, this is what you're saying, which is an indicator that things are not okay, that you need support, help, you need somebody close by, you need training, we need to talk about things some more. That's the sign. When somebody starts saying they're suicide, it's not the sign that you just let them do whatever they want. And sadly, I've seen, in laws, legislatively, stuff like that, people make laws to try to help children because they're worried about suicide, but in the end up removing those boundaries, those protections that the children really, truly need in order to not be suicidal. And there's a lot of children that get the things they want and then they kill themselves afterward. So it really didn't work. In fact, oftentimes more so afterward, because they really were looking for a person to care enough to stop them. We have to be willing to be that person, to put in that time to care. I know this is a super sensitive topic to discuss, and I definitely could talk more about it because there's so many things that we should mention. I think one of the biggest things that I could say is have a really great conversation with your child and make a plan. When we're talking about self-government, which is usually what I talk about here on this channel, it's all about planning, following through with a plan, and sometimes just seeing that there's another way to solve a problem and making a plan can make a difference. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but you can help a person through making a plan. And it really does make a difference to see that there's a direction to head, because sometimes they just feel stuck. I have another video called Break the Lecturing Habit. In that video, I'll be talking about parent counseling sessions. I highly recommend watching that video. That video will help you know certain strategies for how to talk to your child about sensitive issues, and suicide and some of these thoughts that they're having definitely qualify as those types of sensitive issues.